Hey, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, and today we're going on a tech journey, alright? We're going to be checking out the Acer Predator Triton 900. This is a beast of a gaming laptop. It is 17.3 inch screen. Inside this is a full-blown GTX 2080. It's got a 4K IPS touchscreen display. There's a load of crazy things. It even has this insanely awesome screen, which flips out like this. Like, what is that? Anyway, we're going to take a proper look at this in this video. We're going to put it through its paces. We are going to, check out the specs, check out some games. We're also going to be running Red Dead Redemption 2 on this in 4K to really see what it can do. So, hopefully you guys enjoy it. I do want to give a massive shout out to Acer for very kindly sponsoring this video and lending me this laptop. It's only on loan. I don't get to keep it, unfortunately. It is quite nice. But regardless, we're going to take a look at it, run through the specs, and just basically show you guys what this thing is capable of. So, let's start off on the outside. If it wasn't already obvious from the intro, this laptop is pretty beefy, sporting a 17.3 inch screen, a pretty sizable body, especially when you factor in that fancy hinge design, and the full-blown RTX 2080 inside. This thing weighs around 4.5 kilograms, that's around 9 pounds, so it's got some weight to it. However, one of the great things about it being this size, it also has a ton of great I/O options. Down the left side, you have a USB 3.0 port, your typical audio ports for microphone and headphone, and also this rather interesting second USB port attached to this swivel device, which at first I thought might have just been like a convenient way to, say, plug in some of those bulkier devices. But in reality, it's designed as a way to plug in and hide away your, say, wireless mouse or keyboard adapters. You know how like you normally have them and they stick outside your laptop and you're like, oh, I hope it doesn't break off or snap off? Well, this way you plug it in, fold it in, and it keeps it completely flush, which is actually really cool. On the right side, you also have an Ethernet port, which I absolutely love. Anytime I go and I'm traveling and I just be able to sort of sit in a hotel, I prefer to plug in instead of having to rely on their shoddy internet or their Wi-Fi. So that's nice. There's also another USB 3.0 port, Lightning and USB-C ports, your power button, and a Kensington lock. And then on the back, you also have two full display ports and your charging port too. So there's plenty of options to work with here. Now, moving on from there, let's talk more about this fancy screen, because there's really quite a lot going on here. I showed it to you briefly at the beginning of this video, but when I first got a chance to try this out, I was instantly impressed. The lid opens up like any normal laptop would, and you can quite happily use it that way. But the special hinge design means you can push the bottom of it out and actually bring the screen much closer to you, which is handy since the space between the keyboard and the screen is quite sizable given all the internal components. Furthermore, you can even lie the screen completely flat and use it as a touchpad, since it's also a touch screen. I will say, it is a little bit heavy to use as a conventional tablet. I mean, you're not going to be walking around holding this in one hand. Even if you go to the gym a lot, it's still a worthy challenge. A few additional notes though about the screen. As mentioned, it is a full 4K UHD display, so it's super crisp, making it great for both gaming or watching movies, although admittedly, you likely wouldn't have bought a laptop like this for the sole purpose of watching movies. But if you have it, then it's also pretty nice. The adjustable angle also makes for easy viewing, plus it's got the comfy view feature, which makes it just easy to watch from wider, more varied angles. It's also got almost 100% Adobe RGB color space coverage, so overall, this is a really nice quality display. It is, however, worth noting that while it is touchscreen, it doesn't work with your typical styluses from other devices, which is a shame. Having such a huge screen and the ability to lay it flat, it would have been perfect to use as a drawing tablet or a workspace in that regard. Additionally, it is also worth noting that it has a 60Hz refresh rate on the screen, so while completely fine for a lot of, say, more cinematic gaming experiences such as Red Dead Redemption 2, The Witcher 3, Tomb Raider, etc., if your goal is to play games more competitively like CSGO, Apex and the like, then it might not exactly be what you're looking for. However, if we then turn our attention to the power behind this thing, because as mentioned, this machine is a beast. This model sports an 8th generation Intel Core i7 8750H processor, an Nvidia GeForce RTX 2080, 16GB of RAM, and a 500GB hard drive. Now, being an RTX gaming laptop, that of course means it's incredibly fast and super quiet, unless of course you decide to take advantage of the Predator overclock, in which case it's going to make quite a bit of noise. But more importantly, you can then get higher frames in your games, and for those that support it, take full advantage of real-time ray tracing and AI, all in a laptop. I know this thing is big, but it's still a laptop, and that's pretty damn impressive. Now, every time I do a video about laptops, someone in the comments usually says something like, for that price, I could build a desktop PC, and while that may be true, yes, this thing is not cheap, keep in mind that not everyone wants a desktop. Sometimes people just have limited space, sometimes people just don't necessarily want to commit to all the necessary additional components, so this machine here could quite happily be a desktop replacement for you, giving you enough power to game on maximum settings at high frame rates, churn out video edits if content creation is your thing, and just in general do pretty much all your necessary tasks. I took the newly released Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC for a spin, cranked the settings up to Ultra 4K and ran the in-game benchmark. While naturally in a game as vast and busy as this, there will always be certain times when frame rates do dip, but the overall average came out at 56 FPS, so while yes, just shy of 60, and I know some people might sniff at anything that is less than 60, the fact that this is a laptop running at 4K ultra settings, that is actually pretty impressive. Of course, if you do drop it down to 1080 or even 1440p, you can pull off that 60 FPS, so you do of course have the option depending on how you want to game. Now, for something like Red Dead, I'd obviously naturally hook up a controller, and in truth, that's honestly how I feel like you play a lot of your games on this system anyway. That's, not exactly exclusive to a laptop, it's what I do on my PC as well, it's just the comfortable way to play. That being said, the system does also have a nice mechanical keyboard, and like any laptop, I always find this, you start with a new laptop and it takes a little bit of kind of getting used to. I will say the shift key placement, the right shift key is quite weird on this laptop, so it took some getting used to, but in terms of actual comfort, once you've used it for quite some time, it's actually pretty nice to use. It's got a full-sized mechanical keyboard, and the numpad is cleverly hidden behind the touchpad. So you double tap the top right hand corner, and the touchpad reveals itself in this sort of rather cool, like James Bond spy sort of secret panel kind of thing, which I like, right? Anytime there's sort of like hidden compartments, things like that, I'm all over that. So that's pretty cool. And of course, on top of that, when I first saw the touchpad itself off to one side, I was a little bit unsure, but after using it, it's actually pretty comfortable. It's a little bit more squashed than normal, but the more vertical design also makes it ideal for scrolling, and the right aligned position also makes for a slightly more typical setup. So overall, it's actually pretty sweet. So in summary, if gaming is your thing, especially more so for those cinematic games, you're playing things like Red Dead, The Witcher, Tomb Raider, that kind of thing where, it's much more about the visual spectacle and less so about, the twitchy reactions, then this might actually be something to consider. Obviously, if you are much more into your competitive games, quick twitchy reactions, CSGO, Doom, Apex, that kind of thing, it might not necessarily be your go-to device. It is of course also an incredibly expensive machine. It does come in at around £3,700, similar price in dollars, so it's also a hard sell unless you're of course looking for an incredibly top spec machine. So how do you kind of pitch this, right? Who exactly is it aimed at? Well, it goes without saying, this is an RTX gaming laptop, right? It is for gaming. So obviously, top end gamers or kind of people that really want like a high spec machine where they can run their games on ultra settings, having the best possible performance, taking advantage of that 4K screen, all of that good stuff is typically where it's going to be aimed at. I would say, of course, the ideal point for this would, of course, be someone looking to replace a desktop or maybe just kind of use it in place of a desktop. It's, of course, one of those things that price point wise, yes, you could, of course, get just the same spec in a desktop PC, but if convenience and kind of portability is what you're looking for, yes, it is still heavy. It's not necessarily your typical portable device, but it is still a laptop. All that power, all that, nice display, everything that you've just seen, everything we've kind of just discussed, all of that is still ultimately in a portable package that you can fold up, put in a bag, and take with you. So if you do want to go somewhere and you want to, be super serious with your gaming on the go, then this might be for you. Again, I also mentioned that it is also ideal for content creation. You can, especially with that GPU in there, especially with the processor it's got, you can quite happily do some good video editing in there. Yes, you might want a bit more RAM to really kind of crank up the edits. So if editing is your primary purpose, then it's obviously not necessarily going to be the exact device you would lean towards. But as a kind of jack of all trades, kind of all spec machine that you can use for a wide variety of things between gaming, editing, watching movies, that kind of stuff, then that's kind of where it goes. So long story short, it's a top end gaming laptop that is pretty beefy, pretty powerful, and has a rather sweet display. So there you have it. That is a look at the Acer Predator Triton 900. Definitely a very impressive piece of kit. I really do like this screen. I think it's really cool. I'd like to see that on more laptops. I appreciate the hinge might not be that feasible on everything. Regardless, I like it, right? It's a beast of a machine. It is, I appreciate, not necessarily for everyone, right? It's not cheap. It's not designed as an entry-level laptop. It is definitely a hefty price point. But if you're using it as maybe like a desktop replacement, or maybe you want to kind of have it as like your standalone machine, you can definitely get a great deal of mileage out of it. It is powerful, it can play games at very high spec, and even if you're editing or doing things like that, like I do in content creation, it's also still pretty good. So definitely an impressive piece of kit. Maybe not something that I would necessarily use as my personal daily driver, because whenever I go to events, I'm carrying a backpack full of equipment like camera gear and laptops. It's kind of heavy. I'd probably have a broken back by the end of the day. But that aside, it is definitely a cool piece of kit. Anyway, thank you very much to Acer for very kindly loaning this to me, giving me a chance to check it out, and of course sponsoring this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed a look at the laptop. If you have any questions, by all means let me know in the comments down below. If you want more details, click the link down below to find out more about this machine. And of course, be sure to keep it locked for plenty more gaming content.